Maria stared at the colorful invitations scattered across her kitchen table, each one carefully decorated with glitter and rainbow stickers. Her twins, Sophia and Miguel, had spent hours making them perfect for their 8th birthday party. The excitement in their eyes when they handed out the invitations at school last week was something she would never forget. But now, 3 days before the party, her phone remained silent. Not a single RSVP had come in. Not one parent had called to confirm their child would attend. The silence felt heavier with each passing hour, and Maria's heart broke a little more each time she saw her children checking the mailbox or asking if anyone had called yet. Living in the small apartment complex on Maple Street wasn't easy for a single mother. Maria worked double shifts at the local diner just to make ends meet, and most days she barely had time to breathe, let alone socialize with other parents. While other mothers chatted during school pickup, she was usually rushing to her evening shift. While they attended PTA meetings, she was serving tables and cleaning up after the dinner rush. The twins didn't complain, but Maria could see the loneliness in their eyes sometimes. They watched other children get invited to birthday parties, sleepovers, and playdates that never extended to them. Sophia had mentioned once that some kids at school said their mom probably couldn't afford to throw good parties anyway. Miguel had come home asking why they didn't live in a big house like Tommy Peterson's family. These comments stung Maria deeply, but she tried not to let it show. She worked so hard to give her children everything they needed, even if it meant sacrificing things she wanted. The birthday party was supposed to be special. She had been saving money for months, putting aside every spare dollar she could find. She bought decorations, planned games, and even splurged on a small cake from the fancy bakery downtown instead of making one herself. The apartment was small, but she had transformed the living room into a party space. Streamers hung from the ceiling, balloons were tied to every chair, and she had rearranged the furniture to create space for games. The kitchen counter was covered with party supplies, paper plates with cartoon characters matching cups and goodie bags she had carefully assembled with candy and small toys. But what good was a party without guests? Maria had invited 20 children from their class, hoping that at least a few would show up. She had even included her phone number on each invitation, making it easy for parents to respond. Maybe they lost the invitations, she told herself. Maybe they forgot to call. Maybe they were just busy with their own lives. Deep down, though, she suspected the truth was simpler and more painful. The other parents didn't see her as part of their community. She was the waitress who served their coffee, not someone they wanted their children spending time with. Her apartment wasn't in the right neighborhood. Her car wasn't new enough. Her clothes weren't expensive enough. In their eyes, she wasn't enough. The twins sensed something was wrong. Sophia kept asking if she should remind her friends at school about the party. Miguel suggested they could call people directly. Their hopeful faces made Maria's chest tighten with emotion. How could she explain to 8-year-olds that sometimes the world could be cruel and unfair? How could she tell them that their excitement and joy weren't enough to guarantee happiness? That evening, after the children were asleep, Maria sat on her small balcony looking out at the parking lot below. Other apartments had their lights on, and she could hear the sounds of families inside. Televisions playing, parents calling children to dinner. The ordinary sounds of belonging somewhere. She felt completely alone in her worry and disappointment. Tomorrow she would have to start preparing them for the possibility that no one would come. She would have to find a way to make the day special just for the 3 of them, to somehow turn their disappointment into something bearable. Maybe they could have their own private celebration, just the family. Maybe she could take them somewhere fun instead, like the park or the movies. But she knew it wouldn't be the same. They had dreamed of a real birthday party with friends, games, and laughter filling their home. They had imagined sharing their special day with classmates, playing together, and feeling like they belonged to something bigger than their small family of 3. Maria wiped away a tear and made a decision. She would give them the best party she could, even if they were the only ones there. She would play all the games she had planned, take pictures of them wearing party hats, and make sure they knew how special and loved they were. It might not be the party they dreamed of, but it would be filled with love. As she prepared for bed, Maria whispered a small prayer to whoever might be listening. She asked not for miracles or magic, just for her children to feel valued and happy on their special day. She asked for strength to hide her own disappointment and for wisdom to help them understand that sometimes life doesn't go as planned, but that doesn't make them any less worthy of celebration. Little did she know that just 2 floors below, someone had been watching and listening. Someone who understood exactly what it felt like to plan a celebration that no one would attend. Someone who was already making plans of his own. David Martinez had been standing at his kitchen sink washing dishes when he heard the conversation on the balcony above. The thin walls of the apartment building carried sound easily, especially late at night when everything else was quiet. He wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but the pain in the woman's voice was impossible to ignore. He recognized her immediately. Maria from apartment 3B, the single mother who worked at Jerry's Diner downtown. He had seen her rushing in and out of the building countless times, always carrying grocery bags or laundry, usually looking exhausted, but always smiling at her twins when they ran to greet her. David knew that look well, the expression of someone trying to hold everything together while the world seemed determined to make it harder. David understood that struggle better than most people realized. 2 years ago, his wife Jennifer had died in a car accident, leaving him to raise their 6-year-old daughter Emma alone. The grief had been overwhelming, but the practical challenges were almost as difficult. Suddenly he was trying to manage work, household duties, and parenting all by himself, with no instruction manual for any of it. The first year after Jennifer's death was a blur of missed school events, frozen dinners, and awkward conversations with other parents who didn't know what to say to the widowed father. Emma's first birthday without her mother had been devastating. David had tried to plan a party, but most of the other parents made excuses not to attend. Some were uncomfortable around his grief. Others simply didn't know how to include a single father in their social circles. Emma had put on a brave face that day, but David had found her crying in her room afterward, asking why Mommy couldn't come to her party and why none of her friends showed up. It was one of the hardest moments of his life, watching his daughter try to understand why the world suddenly felt so lonely and different. Since then, David had made it his mission to never let another child experience that kind of disappointment, if he could help it. He volunteered at Emma's school, organized playdates with other single parents he had met through a support group, and always tried to be the parent who showed up when others might not. When he heard Maria's quiet sobs on the balcony, his heart immediately went out to her. He knew exactly what she was feeling, the helplessness of watching your children hope for something you can't guarantee, the frustration of being excluded from communities that should welcome you, the exhaustion of carrying everything alone. David spent most of the night thinking about what he had overheard. He remembered the twins from around the building, Sophia with her bright smile and Miguel with his serious expression and careful way of speaking. They were polite children who always said hello when they passed in the hallway. Emma had mentioned them before, saying they seemed nice but that they were in a different class at school. By morning, David had made up his mind. He knocked on Emma's bedroom door and found her getting ready for school, brushing her long brown hair in front of her small mirror. "Em, what do you know about the kids upstairs? Sophia and Miguel?" he asked, sitting on the edge of her bed. Emma turned around, her brush still in her hand. "They're in Mrs. Rodriguez's class. Sophia sits near me at lunch sometimes. She's really good at drawing. Miguel is super smart. He always wins the math competitions." "Why, Dad?" "I think they're having a birthday party this weekend, and I was wondering if you might want to go," David said carefully. He hadn't received an invitation, but he was sure that could be remedied. Emma's face lit up immediately. "Really? That would be awesome. I never get to go to parties for kids in other classes. Can we bring them presents? What kind of cake do you think they'll have?" Her excitement confirmed what David already knew. This was the right thing to do. That evening, after Emma had gone to bed, he climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor and knocked gently on apartment 3B. It took a moment for Maria to answer, and when she did, she looked surprised and a little worried. "Hi, I'm David Martinez from apartment 1B, he said with a warm smile. "I believe your twins are having a birthday party this weekend?" Maria's expression shifted from confusion to embarrassment. Oh yes, well, we were planning something small, but you probably didn't receive an invitation because… Actually, I was hoping Emma and I could attend, David interrupted gently. She mentioned that Sophia and Miguel seem really nice and she'd love to celebrate with them. I hope we're not being presumptuous. Maria stared at him for a moment, clearly trying to process this unexpected turn of events. You want to come? Even though you don't really know us. Sometimes the best friendships start with neighbors looking out for each other, David said. Besides, Emma could use more friends in the building and birthdays should always be celebrated properly. Tears gathered in Maria's eyes, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of hope. Maybe the party wouldn't be a complete disaster after all. Maybe her children would have at least one friend there to help them celebrate. I would love that, she whispered. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means to us. But David did know. He knew exactly what it meant because he remembered how it felt when someone had finally shown up for Emma when no one else would. He understood the power of one person deciding to care, to reach out, to make sure no child felt forgotten on their special day. As he walked back downstairs, David was already making plans. One guest was a start, but he had a feeling that Sophia and Miguel deserved much more than that. David couldn't stop thinking about the twins' party as he went through his Friday routine. While Emma was at school, he found himself walking through the apartment building with new eyes, really noticing the other families who lived there. He realized he had been so focused on his own struggles over the past 2 years that he hadn't paid much attention to building a real community in their home. The Maple Street apartments housed about 30 families, mostly working-class people, trying to make ends meet in an expensive city. There was Mrs. Chen from apartment 2A, who worked nights at the hospital and had a 10-year-old son named Kevin. The Williams family in 1C had 3 kids under 12, and David often heard them, playing in the courtyard. The Patel family had recently moved into 3A with their twin daughters who looked about the same age as Sophia and Miguel. An idea began forming in David's mind. What if the party could be bigger than just Emma and him? What if other families in the building might want to join in celebrating the twins? He spent his lunch break walking through the building, knocking on doors and introducing himself properly to neighbors he had only nodded to in passing. Mrs. Chen answered her door looking exhausted from her night shift, but her face brightened when David explained about the party. Kevin has been asking about those twins for weeks, she said. He sees them at the bus stop every morning but is too shy to introduce himself. He would love to go to their party. Can I bring something? I make excellent spring rolls. The Williams family was enthusiastic too. Sarah Williams laughed when David told her about the situation. Those poor kids. Of course we'll come. My 3 would be thrilled to have something fun to do this weekend. Should I bring my famous brownies and maybe some extra decorations? The Patel family had just moved in 2 weeks ago and hadn't met many neighbors yet. When David explained about the birthday party, Mrs. Patel's eyes filled with understanding. Our girls Priya and Mira are the same age as the birthday children, but they haven't made friends at their new school yet. This would be perfect for all of them. We will bring samosas and traditional Indian sweets. By Friday evening, David had visited 12 apartments and received enthusiastic responses from 8 families. Word was spreading organically through the building as people talked to each other in the laundry room and by the mailboxes. The party was becoming a real community celebration. Emma was practically vibrating with excitement when David told her how many kids would be at the party now. Dad, this is going to be the best party ever. Should we make a bigger present for Sophia and Miguel now that it's going to be so special? That evening, David climbed the stairs to apartment 3B again, this time with a notebook full of names and phone numbers. When Maria answered the door, she looked even more tired than usual, but she managed to smile. How are the party preparations going? David asked gently. Maria sighed and invited him in. The apartment was small but clean, with children's artwork covering the refrigerator and school books stacked neatly on the kitchen table. The living room had been transformed with decorations, but there was something sad about the empty space waiting for guests who might not come. I keep hoping more people will call, Maria admitted. The twins are so excited and I don't want to disappoint them, but I'm starting to think we should have a backup plan. David smiled and handed her the notebook. Actually, I think you're going to need a bigger backup plan. For too many guests, not too few. Maria stared at the list of names and phone numbers, her mouth falling open. What is this? Your guest list, David said. I took the liberty of talking to some of our neighbors. It turns out there are a lot of families in this building who would love to celebrate with Sophia and Miguel. Mrs. Chen is bringing spring rolls, the Williams family is making brownies, and the Patels want to contribute samosas and Indian sweets. Oh, and Mr. Rodriguez from the first floor is bringing his guitar in case we want music. Tears started flowing down Maria's cheeks, but these were tears of overwhelming gratitude and disbelief. I don't understand. Why would all these people want to come to our party? They don't even know us. That's exactly why they want to come, David explained. Everyone in this building is working hard, raising families, trying to make life work. We all understand what it's like to feel alone sometimes. When neighbors help neighbors, everybody wins. Your twins get the party they deserve, and the rest of us get to be part of something good. Maria looked around her small apartment with new eyes. But I don't have enough space for all these people, and I only bought enough food and supplies for a few kids. I don't know how to handle a big party. What if I mess this up? You won't mess it up, David assured her. And you're not handling it alone. Mrs. Williams is bringing extra decorations. The Patels offered to help with setup. Kevin's mom is great at organizing games for big groups. This is going to be a team effort. For the first time in months, Maria felt truly hopeful about something. The party that had seemed doomed to be a disappointment was transforming into something magical. Her children were going to have the celebration they had dreamed of, surrounded by friends and neighbors who wanted to be there. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. This is more than I ever hoped for. The thanks go both ways, David replied. Emma has been so excited about this party that she's been planning her outfit for 2 days. And honestly, this building has felt more like home in the past 2 days than it has since we moved in. Sometimes it takes one celebration to bring a whole community together. As David headed back to his own apartment, he could hear Sophia and Miguel's voices through the door, excitedly discussing party games with their mother. Tomorrow was going to be a day that the twins would remember forever, but David suspected it would be just as memorable for all the adults who had rediscovered what it meant to be neighbors. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunshine streaming through the windows of apartment 3B. Sophia and Miguel woke up before their alarm, bouncing with excitement and racing to their mother's room to make sure she was awake too. Maria had barely slept, not from worry this time, but from the overwhelming anticipation of the day ahead. Is it time for the party yet? Miguel asked for the 10th time that morning, checking the kitchen clock every few minutes. Can we put on our party clothes now? Sophia added, twirling in her pajamas as if practicing for later. Maria laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. Not yet, sweethearts. We need to eat breakfast first, and then we have lots of help coming to set up before anyone arrives. The doorbell rang at 9 o'clock sharp, and Emma Martinez stood in the hallway holding a large wrapped present and wearing a bright yellow dress with matching hair ribbons. Behind her, David carried a box of supplies and wore a warm smile that immediately put Maria at ease. Happy birthday, Emma announced loudly, making Sophia and Miguel giggle with delight. I brought you both something special, and Dad says we get to help make your party the best one ever. Within the next hour, apartment 3B was transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Mrs. Chen arrived with Kevin and a large tray of spring rolls that filled the kitchen with delicious aromas. The Williams family came with 3 excited children and arms full of homemade brownies, extra streamers, and a box of games they had borrowed from their church. The Patel family brought not only samosas and colorful Indian sweets, but also beautiful fabric decorations that they hung around the living room, adding splashes of gold and red to Maria's rainbow theme. Mrs. Patel immediately began helping Maria organize the food table, chatting warmly about parenting and sharing stories about moving to a new neighborhood. More neighbors kept arriving, with contributions that Maria never could have imagined. Mr. Rodriguez came with his acoustic guitar and a collection of children's music. Mrs. Thompson from the second floor brought her famous lemonade and a camera to document the celebration. Even Mr. and Mrs. Foster, The elderly couple from apartment 1A came with a puzzle game they thought the children might enjoy. Sophia and Miguel watched in amazement as their small apartment filled with friendly faces and delicious smells. Their eyes grew wide when they saw the gift table accumulating more presents than they had ever seen in one place. Miguel whispered to his mother, "Is this really all for us?" While Sophia kept introducing herself to every new child who arrived, David found himself naturally taking charge of logistics, making sure everyone had space to put their contributions and helping coordinate the setup. He watched Maria's face throughout the morning, seeing her amazement and gratitude at each new arrival. She kept thanking people over and over, as if she couldn't quite believe this was really happening. "I need to pay you all back somehow," Maria kept saying, but Mrs. Williams just laughed and shook her head. "Honey, this is what neighbors do for each other. Next time one of our kids needs something special, we know you'll be there too." The children from the building were getting along beautifully. Emma immediately attached herself to Sophia, admiring her drawings and asking to see her room. Kevin, who had been shy at first, found common ground with Miguel over their shared love of science books. The Patel twins, Priya and Meera, brought out some traditional Indian games that fascinated all the other children. By 11 o'clock, the apartment was ready for the official party start time. The living room had been completely rearranged to maximize space, with cushions and blankets creating cozy seating areas. The food table groaned under the weight of contributions from every family: spring rolls, brownies, samosas, fresh fruit, homemade cookies, and Maria's special birthday cake taking center stage. The decorations had evolved far beyond Maria's original vision. Rainbow streamers mixed with golden fabric, balloons were tied to every possible surface, and someone had created a beautiful birthday banner using construction paper and glitter. The small apartment felt magical, filled with laughter and the excited chatter of children who were genuinely thrilled to be there. Maria pulled David aside during a quiet moment, tears of gratitude in her eyes. "I don't understand how this happened. Yesterday I was worried that nobody would come, and now look at this place, it's like a dream." "It's not a dream," David assured her. "It's just what happens when people decide to care about each other. Your kids deserve this celebration, and everyone here can see that. Sometimes it just takes one person reaching out to create something beautiful." At exactly noon, the official party began with Mr. Rodriguez leading everyone in singing "Happy Birthday," while Sophia and Miguel stood behind their cake beaming with joy. Their faces glowed in the candlelight, and when they made their wishes and blew out the candles together, the entire room erupted in cheers and applause. Miguel's wish was that every day could be as happy as today. Sophia's wish was that all these new friends would stay in their lives forever. Neither of them had ever imagined that a birthday party could feel so full of love and community. The games that followed were loud, chaotic, and absolutely perfect. Musical chairs became a group dance party when no one wanted anyone to be eliminated. The treasure hunt that Maria had planned for 5 children was expanded to accommodate 15, with clues hidden all over the building, and older kids helping younger ones find the prizes. As the afternoon continued, Maria realized that this party had become something much bigger than a birthday celebration. It was the beginning of a real community among the families in their building. She watched neighbors exchanging phone numbers, making plans for future playdates, and talking about organizing regular potluck dinners. The birthday party that she had feared would be a disappointment had become the most wonderful day her family had ever experienced. More importantly, it had shown her that they were no longer alone in facing life's challenges. They had found their people, right here in their own building, just waiting for someone to make the first connection. The success of Sophia and Miguel's birthday party rippled through the Maple Street apartments in ways that nobody had anticipated. Within a week, the building felt like a completely different place. Children who had previously been strangers were now running through the hallways together, playing games in the courtyard, and asking their parents for playdates with their new friends. Maria found herself at the center of this transformation, still somewhat bewildered by how quickly everything had changed. Parents who had never spoken to her before were now stopping her in the parking lot to chat about their children, share parenting tips, and make plans for future gatherings. "I can't believe how different everything feels," Maria told David one evening when they ran into each other at the mailboxes. "It's like we've been living in the same building as all these wonderful people, but somehow we never really saw each other before." David smiled, understanding exactly what she meant. "Sometimes it takes a celebration to remind people that we're all in this together." Emma has been talking nonstop about all her new friends. She's never been this social before. The changes went beyond just the children's friendships. Mrs. Chen had started an informal babysitting cooperative among the parents, making it easier for everyone to manage work schedules and emergencies. When Maria had to work a double shift the following Tuesday, Mrs. Williams was happy to watch Sophia and Miguel until she got home. The Patel family, who had been feeling isolated since their recent move, found themselves quickly integrated into the building community. Mrs. Patel began teaching some of the other mothers how to make traditional Indian dishes, while Mr. Patel helped several neighbors with computer problems and tax preparation. Mr. Rodriguez, inspired by how much the children had enjoyed his guitar playing at the party, started offering free music lessons in the building's community room on Saturday afternoons. Kevin Chen discovered he had a natural talent for music, while Sophia showed an impressive ability to pick up new songs quickly. The elderly foster couple, who had been living quietly in their apartment for years, suddenly found themselves honorary grandparents to half the children in the building. Mrs. Foster started a weekly story time, and Mr. Foster began teaching some of the older kids how to play chess. But perhaps the most significant change was in Maria herself. The isolation and exhaustion that had weighed her down for so long began to lift as she realized she was no longer facing single parenthood entirely alone. When Miguel came down with the flu, 3 different neighbors offered to bring soup and watch Sophia. When Maria's car broke down, David immediately offered to drive the twins to school until she could get it fixed. "I feel like I've been holding my breath for years," Maria confided to Sarah Williams during one of their new regular coffee meetings in the courtyard. "Always worried that I wasn't doing enough, wasn't giving my kids everything they needed. But now I see that what they needed most was community, and somehow we found it right here where we lived all along." The transformation wasn't lost on the twins either. Sophia had always been the more outgoing of the two, but now she was flourishing with so many new friends to draw with and play with. She started an art club that met in the community room, teaching younger children how to make the same type of decorations she had learned from Mrs. Patel. And Miguel, who had always been serious and somewhat shy, began coming out of his shell as he found other children who shared his love of science and reading. He and Kevin Chen became best friends, spending hours in the courtyard conducting simple experiments and reading each other's favorite books. The building's children also began looking out for each other in ways that touched all the parents' hearts. When little Emma Martinez scraped her knee while playing outside, Sophia immediately ran to get Band-Aids and helped clean the wound. When one of the Williams children lost a favorite toy, all the kids organized a search party until they found it. David watched these changes with deep satisfaction, remembering how isolated and overwhelmed he had felt during his first year as a single father. The support system that was now surrounding his daughter was something he had dreamed of but never dared to hope for. "You know what the best part is?" he told Maria during one of their evening conversations on the building's front steps. A habit they had developed as their friendship deepened. "The kids don't even realize how special this is. To them, this is just how neighborhoods are supposed to work. They're growing up thinking that neighbors naturally help each other and celebrate together." Maria nodded, watching Sophia and Emma play hopscotch in the parking lot, while Miguel and Kevin examined something they had found in the garden. "They're learning that home isn't just where your family lives, but where your community cares about you. That's a lesson worth more than any expensive toy or fancy vacation." The apartment building had transformed from a place where people simply lived in proximity to each other into a genuine community where families supported one another through both celebrations and challenges. It started with one father's decision to ensure that 2 children wouldn't spend their birthday alone, but it became something much larger and more lasting. Other buildings in the neighborhood began to take notice. Parents from nearby apartment complexes started asking how the Maple Street families had built such a strong sense of community. Some began organizing their own building-wide events, inspired by the example of what neighbors could accomplish when they decided to truly care about each other. The birthday party that Maria had feared would be a disaster had become the catalyst for creating the kind of community that every parent hopes their children will grow up in. One where everyone looks out for everyone else, where celebrations are shared, and where no family has to face life's challenges entirely alone. 6 months after the twins' birthday party, the Maple Street apartments had become something of a local legend. Social workers recommended the building to single parents looking for supportive housing. The local newspaper wrote a feature article about the community that had formed there, calling it a model for urban neighborhood building. But for the families who lived there, the recognition from outsiders mattered less than the daily reality of their transformed lives. They had created something precious and lasting, a place where children grew up feeling secure and loved not just by their own families, but by an entire community that watched over them. Maria stood in her kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning, looking out at the courtyard where several children were playing together while their parents sat on benches nearby, chatting and keeping a collective eye on everyone's kids. It had become such a normal sight that she sometimes forgot how remarkable it was. Sophia and Miguel, now 9 years old, had grown confident and happy in ways that still amazed their mother. Sophia had discovered a passion for organizing events and was already planning the building's first annual spring festival. Miguel had developed into a natural leader among the younger children, patient and kind in teaching them games and helping with homework. The changes in her own life were just as dramatic. Maria had been promoted to shift supervisor at the diner, partly because her improved confidence and happiness had made her a natural leader among the staff. The network of childcare support in the building meant she could occasionally work extra shifts without worry, finally building up some financial security for her family. More importantly, she no longer felt the crushing weight of single parenthood. When the twins got sick, multiple neighbors offered help. When she needed advice about school issues or parenting challenges, she had experienced friends to turn to. The isolation that had once defined her daily life was now just a distant memory. David had also found his life transformed in unexpected ways. Emma had blossomed into a confident, socially skilled child who was thriving both at school and at home. The friendship between Emma and Sophia had deepened into something like sisterhood, with the girls supporting each other through everything from scraped knees to hurt feelings. But perhaps more surprisingly, David's own friendship with Maria had gradually evolved into something deeper. Their evening conversations had become the highlight of both their days, and they had discovered a compatibility and understanding that neither had expected to find again. "I never thought I would feel ready to care about someone new," David admitted to Maria one evening as they watched their children play together in the courtyard. "But somehow you and the twins have become such an essential part of Emma's life, and mine, that I can't imagine things any other way." Maria felt the same way. The man who had saved her children's birthday party had become so much more than a neighbor or even a friend. He had become family in every way that mattered. When she looked at her future now, she couldn't picture it without David and Emma as central parts of it. The other families in the building had watched this relationship develop with warm approval. Mrs. Chen had started making knowing comments about how nice it was to see two people who were so good for each other. The Williams children had begun referring to Emma as Sophia and Miguel's sister, a designation that all three children embraced enthusiastically. The community that had formed around the twins' birthday party had evolved into something even more beautiful, an extended family of choice where everyone belonged and everyone was valued. Children moved freely between apartments, confident they would be welcomed and cared for wherever they went. Parents shared resources, advice, and support without keeping score, understanding that they were all stronger together than apart. When Sophia and Miguel's 9th birthday arrived, there was no question about how it would be celebrated. The entire building participated in planning a celebration that filled not just one apartment, but the entire courtyard and community room. 3 other children in the building had birthdays within a few weeks of the twins, so it became a joint celebration that lasted an entire weekend. The party featured foods from every culture represented in the building, games organized by children who had learned to plan activities for large groups, and music that ranged from Mr. Rodriguez's guitar to traditional songs from the Patel family's homeland. It was loud, chaotic, joyful, and absolutely perfect. As Maria watched her children blow out their candles surrounded by dozens of friends and neighbors who had truly become family, she remembered the desperation and loneliness she had felt exactly 1 year ago. The transformation seemed almost miraculous, but she understood now that it wasn't magic that had changed their lives. It was one person's decision to care, followed by another person's choice to join in, and then another until caring became the defining characteristic of their entire community. David's simple act of knocking on her door to offer friendship had created ripples that continued to spread, touching every family in the building and even inspiring other neighborhoods to build similar connections. The story that had begun with 2 children who thought no one would celebrate with them had become a testament to the power of community and the difference one person's kindness could make. But more than that, it had become a living example of how families are created not just through blood or marriage, but through the daily choice to care for each other. Years later, when Sophia and Miguel were teenagers, they would still remember their 8th birthday as the day their real life began. Not because of the presents or the cake, but because it was the day they learned that they belonged to something bigger than their small family of 3. David and Maria eventually married in a ceremony held in the courtyard of the Maple Street apartments, surrounded by the community that had brought them together. Emma, Sophia, and Miguel served as the wedding party, their joy at officially becoming siblings evident to everyone present. The building continued to be a model of community, support, with new families being welcomed and integrated into the network of care that had grown from a single birthday party. Children who grew up there carried the lessons of neighborly love with them when they eventually moved on, spreading the values of community and mutual support to new places. But perhaps the most important legacy was simpler and more personal. In a world that often felt disconnected and isolating, the families of Maple Street had proven that home was wherever people chose to love and support each other. They had shown that community wasn't something that happened to them, but something they created together, one act of kindness at a time. The birthday party that Maria had feared would be a disappointment had become the foundation for dozens of celebrations, countless friendships, and immeasurable joy. It reminded everyone involved that sometimes the most beautiful things in life begin with the simple decision to show up for each other, especially when no one else will.